Hey there, how are you doing? Is everything going just as you planned, or is anything frustrating you? Let me ask you, what are you feeling right now as you start to watch this video? Are you curious? Hopeful that you'll learn something about yourself? Bored because this is something you have to do for the class and you're not really into it? Or happy because it's a topic that you enjoy learning about? By answering to these questions, you're going to describe your emotions. Emotions like these are part of human nature. They give us information about what we're experiencing and help us know how to behave. Dale Carnegie, in his book How to Win Friends and Influence People, wrote, "When dealing with people, let us remember we're not dealing with creatures of logic. We're dealing with creatures of emotion, creatures bristling with prejudice and motivated by pride and vanity." Wow, that's kinda deep. Anyway, we humans are persuaded by reason, but we're moved by emotion. Several studies conclude that up to 90% of the decisions we make are based on emotion. Then we use logic to justify our actions to ourselves and to others. But emotions will always win over logic, the same way our imagination always wins over reality. It can be seen in the way we buy stuff for ourselves. Our heads tell us that it's ridiculous to buy another pair of shoes, since we already have 14 pairs. But in the end, our hearts win out, thinking of all these stunning new outfits that shoes will go with. And we go home with the new shoebox tucked under the arms. Whereas logic is the language of the conscious mind, emotion is the language of the unconscious mind. Plato described emotion and reason as two horses pulling us in opposite directions. However, modern neuroscientist Antonio Damasio argues that reasoning depends on emotion and is not in opposition to emotion. A few years ago, he made a groundbreaking discovery. He studied people with damage in the part of the brain where emotions are generated. He found that they seemed normal, except they were not able to feel emotions. But they all had something peculiar in common. They couldn't make decisions. They could describe what they should be doing in logical terms, yet they found it very difficult to make even simple decisions such as what to eat. Many decisions have pros and cons on both sides. Shall I have the chicken or the turkey? With no rational way to decide, these test subjects were unable to arrive at a decision. Well, now we know that emotions play the most important role in decision-making process. If that is true, then people should always be learning to manage their emotions, to understand emotions of others in order to succeed in their daily life and their work environment. That skill of emotional awareness and empathy towards others is called emotional intelligence. In this video, we will learn about emotional intelligence and how it affects our daily life, the business environment, and specifically the negotiation process, because this process requires high level of communication and decision-making skills that are highly affected by our emotions. And in the last part, we will present short skits of practical advice for using emotional intelligence in negotiation.
What is negotiation? Negotiation is a strategic discussion that resolves an issue in a way that both parties find acceptable. In negotiation, each party tries to persuade the other to agree with his or her point of view. By negotiation, all involved parties try to avoid arguing, but agree to reach some form of compromise. Negotiation involves some give and take, which means one party will always come out on top of the negotiation. The other though must concede even if concession is nominal. Parties involved in negotiation can vary. They can include talk between buyers and sellers, or an employer or prospective employee, or government of two or more countries. Negotiation skills are qualities that allow two or more parties to reach a compromise. They are often soft skills and include abilities such as communication, persuasion, planning, and cooperating. Understanding these skills is the first step to becoming a stronger negotiator. Where do people learn to negotiate successfully? Rule 1. Everything is negotiable. Rule 2. Know what you want before negotiating. Rule number 3. Aim for win-win negotiation. Number 5. Never believe anyone else is entirely on your side. And the last one, rule number 6. Strive to be innocent. Effective negotiation tactics is listen more than you talk, using timing to your advantage, always find the right way to frame the negotiation, always get when you give, always be willing to watch. What is emotional intelligence? Emotional psychology defines emotional intelligence as recognizing and understanding your emotions and those of others. By using emotional understanding, you can make decisions, solve problems, and communicate more effectively. 4 levels of EQ include perception of emotions, reasoning with emotions, understanding emotions, and management of emotions. People used to consider intelligence and emotion as opposites. However, the interlocking of two has been a major area of interest. They always that thinking and emotions interact influences how people behave and make decisions. And why emotional intelligence is important? Because each day you must make decisions, and most of them are influenced in some way by your emotions. You may feel that option B is better than option A, and understanding the way feel is critical to understanding how emotions affect the decision-making process. We often make choices based on gut feeling. If you have a high EQ, you can understand the emotion of others, manage and convey your own, form healthy relationship, and solve problems efficiently, even with the weight of deadlines and other pressures. Emotional intelligence helps you build stronger relationships, succeed at school and work, and achieve your career and personal goals. It also helps you to connect with your feelings, turn intention into action, and make informed decisions about what matters most to you. Daily routines that improve emotional intelligence. 1. Give gratitude. The most effective way to cultivate positivity in your organization is to acknowledge and reward the behavior you want. The second one is manage your stress. A cool head makes better decisions and can help you listen better to your team. Communicate with awareness. Emotional intelligence is particularly important when pitching a proposal. You need to be able to read people and understand which techniques relax them and which ones alienate them. Give back. You can improve your emotional intelligence by joining an organization outside of the workplace that seek to do good in exchange for nothing. Another way is be honest with yourself. Emotional intelligence is the ability to accurately identify feelings and emotions and then put them to use. When you are interacting with someone, ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? What emotions is this person displaying? Begin this practice by reflecting on one conversation every day and journal the answers to form a habit. The next one is breathe before you speak. Always stop and take at least one breath before responding to someone. This simple, short pause allows you to really process what they are saying and show you are listening. It will also change the pace of the discussion and allow both of you to connect. Exercise routinely. Start your day by exercising in the morning, at least 3 minutes to do cardio, yoga, run, lift weights, or etc. Assume the best. You will listen and connect more when you assume people are doing everything they can. Always look for meaning. It's important to reflect at the end of the day to better understand what transpired and how you could have handled it better. And the last one is respectfully disagree. If you don't agree with the decision and need to present an alternative, first put yourself in the other person's shoes and think about how you would want to be approached. Would you want to discuss this one-on-one or in front of a group during a meeting? Are you being solution-oriented or are you pointing out a blah? Always consider the other person.
So, emotional intelligence is the ability to understand your own emotions and to control your own emotions, and it is also the ability to understand the emotions of others. Now, let's look at how emotional intelligence affects us in the business environment. Apparently, managers value emotional intelligence over high intellectual ability of their employees. And there was a study conducted which involved 2,600 managers, and 71% of them said that emotional intelligence is more important than intellectual ability of their employees. And when asked why they thought so, they mentioned that employees with higher emotional intelligence were better at staying calm under pressure. They listened as often or even more than they spoke. They led by example. They were able to make thoughtful decisions. They were able to take criticism and deal with it and learn from the mistakes that they have made. And learn from the mistakes that they have made. They could take criticism well and admit their mistakes and learn from the mistakes. They were also able to keep their emotions in check and discuss tough, sensitive issues thoughtfully and maturely. Not only is high EQ preferred by managers, but it apparently leads to better performance in the workplace. And there was a study that examined 75,000 individuals from 126 countries and from over 15 workplace sectors. And on the graph, you can clearly see that emotional intelligence leads to better performance. As emotional intelligence rises, the overall performance also rises. So high Q is extremely important and it leads to better performance. So now let's look at emotional intelligence in negotiations, how it affects our negotiations, how emotional intelligence impacts negotiations. And we can see that emotional intelligence helps to establish rapport. And we can see it from a study that was conducted, which involved 200 undergraduate students, and they were asked to fill out a questionnaire which was designed to measure their emotional intelligence. And at a later date, the students were paired and assigned to play the role of personnel manager or new employee in a negotiation over a job contract. They could negotiate issues such as salary, vacations, starting date, medical coverage, and had opportunities to both create and claim value. And the results of the study were very interesting because the study reported that respondents with higher EQ had built greater rapport with the negotiating party, with the other party that was negotiating with them. And this strong rapport in turn nurtured trust in one's counterpart and willingness to work in the long term. So they were able to establish long-term connections. However, what's interesting is that people with lower emotional quotient were able to achieve better results in the study, better negotiation outcomes. And the results suggest that emotional rapport and other signs of a keen emotional intellect can promote trust and long-term partnerships. But when it prompts unnecessary concessions, emotional intelligence may undermine the same connection that it is touted to enhance. Another thing is that low control over one's emotions leads to worse results in the long term. You know, the emotions that you have, satisfaction or anxiety or boredom or curiosity or happiness, each one of these emotions may lead to better or worse results. And to understand how emotion impacts negotiations, there was a study conducted by Alison Brooks, and the purpose of the study was the effect of emotions on negotiation results. And prior to taking this, prior to going straight into the research, they asked the participants what emotions they would feel in negotiating for a car or a higher salary. And the highest answer was anxiety. And I'm sure a lot of you have felt that if you have ever negotiated for your salary or for anything, that you have felt a certain level of anxiety. Now, they decided to conduct an experiment to understand how anxiety affects the emotions. And they broke this group into two subgroups. The first group, the experimental group, heard the screeching strings from Hitchcock's Psycho as they were entering their negotiations or prior to negotiations. And the second, control group, listened to portions of Handel's Water music, which is very calming, very calm music. And after that, they were asked to go into a negotiation room and negotiate. And they were paired off to do a simulated negotiation via instant messaging. Now, the results, of course, showed that the anxious subjects had lower expectations, they made lower first offers, they responded more quickly to offers, and they exited the bargaining sooner. You know, these are all characteristics of a bad negotiator, of a negotiator who is anxious or who is not willing or not set up for success, basically. So, of course, no surprise, as the anxious subjects went into negotiations, they performed worse than those who were not anxious.
Now, let us perform short skits with practical advice on emotional intelligence and negotiation. First, learn to mirror words selectively. Repeat the last 1 to 3 words your counterpart just said back to them. This is one of the quickest ways to establish a rapport and make your counterpart feel safe enough to reveal themselves. Additionally, this technique allows you to slow the conversation down, providing more time to think.
Well, Mr. Asker, as you know, my store are experiencing very tough times today. And the major issue is now, of course, cutting the costs.
Sorry, we cannot help you with this. Right now we're experiencing problems with costs ourselves.
Okay, have a good day.
You too.
And the major issue is now, of course, cutting the costs.
Cutting costs is a major issue during these times, Mr. Zandi, and we understand because we're having those problems as well ourselves. But we will do everything we can to support you and to make this business happen.
It would be great. Let's do it.
Second, use empathy strategically. Demonstrate to your counterpart that you're striving to understand their feelings. Phrases like, "It sounds like you're afraid of," or "It looks like you're concerned about," will work great to express empathy. An additional tactic is to sit down before the negotiation and list the weaknesses of your position. Doing so allows you to prepare for the difficult questions and even beat them to the punch.
Well, and about your offer on new installment for our warehouses, I am a little unsure about this because I think it will be affect on the cost. The machines looks like very complicated.
Don't worry about it. Times are changing and so should you, and once we install it, you're gonna be great, I guarantee.
The machines looks like very complicated.
It's perfectly understandable, and it really seems like you are afraid that investments into these new machines will not be financially justified. So let me just show you some reports from our warehouses that have already used it, from our partners. And if you'd like, Mr. Zandi, there are several warehouses that are using these machines right now. We can go ahead and look at them.
Third, get them to know. Every yes is a concession to the other side. At least it sometimes feels that way. Allowing opportunities to say no gives the other person a measure of control. Ask no-oriented questions like, have you given up on this aspect? Or, is it too late to talk about this?
So based on the market research we have conducted, this is what the projections of sales looks like. So, Mr. Zandi, do you think it's a great idea?
Yes, it's a good idea.
These are all the sales we're going to have for this year. Now, let me ask you, is it too early to talk about this? Do you need some time to think?
No, it's a good time. Let's do it.